Hello and welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us today for our virtual meetup titled What is AutoML? We will go over practical tips and see AutoML in action with a real world example. We will also demonstrate how AutoML can augment your data scientists, supercharge your team, and giving your organization the AI edge in record time. My name is Saurabh Kumar, and I'm on the marketing team here at H2.ai. I'd love to start off by introducing our speaker for the day. Sudalai Rajkumar, better known as SRK, is a Kaggle Grandmaster and a senior data scientist at H2.ai. He has worked on varied problems ranging from doing simple analysis on structured data to natural language processing and voice analytics in his decade-long career. His work in the NLP space is praised all over the world. Without further delay, I'd now like to hand it over to SRK.
Hey, thanks a lot, Saurabh. So, for the introduction and for setting this up. So it's really a great pleasure being in the webinar. So cool. Yeah. So yeah, thanks for introducing me. So yeah. So as we all know, so since we are working from home these days, so so yeah, there could be some issues with my internet connection, so please feel free to interrupt and let me know in case if there is something in between, and also yeah, there might be some background noise as well. So yeah, thanks. So cool. So without let's get started. um, okay, so today we'll be talking about AutoML. So what is AutoML, and say how it has evolved over time and so on. So that's the idea of today's meeting. So to give a brief overview of the agenda of today, so these are the things that we'll talk about today. First, I'll briefly tell about H2O, which is the company which we are working on currently. So even before we get into AutoML, we'll see an introduction to AutoML. So basically, sorry. So we'll see about the AML life cycle, where we'll go through the different processes that we follow generally in the AI or ML project, and then we'll see what is an AutoML, and how it has evolved over time, over the past few years. That's a evolution, just say humans have evolved over time. So and we'll also see some of these AutoML packages and tools that are available in the open source domain, as well as some of the closed source packages by H2O. So one of them is driverless AI. So I'll also give a brief demo of driverless AI, how to use that one, and finally we'll have the question and answer session probably for the last 20 minutes or so. So that's the idea and the agenda for today's meeting. So yeah, so I think probably most of you have already know about H2O. So H2O is primarily an open source leader in the AI and machine learning field. So it's been there for more than 8 years now, and then and primarily geared towards the open source space. And the vision of H2O is to make any company, your company, an AI company. So that's the vision of the goal that we are trying to achieve. And generally, we would like to democratize AI, so that it's been used by everyone, and our mission is to use the AI for good in everything we do, be it the enterprise AI, or be it say the community driven activities, or we also do a lot of AI for good activities, where we work with several different NGOs, and for to use make them use AI and ML to get better results. So that's the mission of our company. To give a snapshot of H2O. So this is the very brief snapshot. So H2O has been established in 2012, in Silicon Valley, and we have got Series D funding recently, and the total funding of 147 million, and with some of the very renowned investors. And from the product side, say these are the world-class technology products that we have created so far. So I'm sure most of you people have been aware of the open source machine learning package, so which is the H2O 3 and sparkling water. So which we could use for building machine learning models, and then the H2O driverless AI is another product by which really can geared towards automatic machine learning. And then finally, recently we have a new product called Q. So the previous two products are geared more towards data scientists, say, but in case if there are business analysts or like business users. So this platform is more for business users. And like we are global, present across multiple different locations across the world, including Chennai in India and Singapore in Asia. Um, and okay, so it's not that like we cater to any specific industry. So like Hashu AI like products are used across multiple industries and in multiple use cases. So these are the some of the well-known names that we are serving in the financial services space, and these are some of the use cases that we do in this space, like KYC, AML, which are like very well known in the banking or financial services space. And then like in the healthcare or the life sciences space, like we do uh, uh, things like early cancer detection or like say ER, hospital management, drug discovery. So these are some of the use cases. And in telecom, these are some of the use cases that we are currently working on, and we work with some of the renowned customers there as well. And these are some of the use cases in marketing and retail. So yeah, so these are some of the customers and use cases that we have that we are working on. But apart from this, we also work on other industries as well, including say manufacturing or entertainment or others. So yeah, so just to give a brief idea, okay, so thanks for listening about H2O. So in general, like now let's get on to the auto ML part. In general, like if we consider about AI, so like these are the top challenges that most people mention like in AI today. So one thing, as we all know, is like say finding the right skilled talent, because like since this is a new field, like finding the right talent is kind of hard. And also like the amount of time it takes to say do any analysis or build models. So that's another thing. And the other one another very important thing is trust. Like say we can call it say most of the models are black box, and so I'm not able to explain the models to any end user, or like say there is no real fairness in the machine learning model. So these are some of the other trust issues that we have in the uh, challenges that we have in the AI or ML space today. And okay, so and overall as well, like apart from this, like say generally for any product or anything, like there will be an evolution. So like if we take the YAML, so we can see that this is the type of the evolution that we can see. Like say it all started with computer programming, and then like slowly it moved towards automation, like say robotic process automation kind of things, like where whichever things are repetitive can be done by RPA, and then like slowly it moved on to machine learning, where like say so it added some intelligence to the automation part. So like say when we do machine learning, why not add intelligence inside the machine learning itself and automate some of that own thing? So that's where the evolution is taking us to next. So that's where like auto YAML came into being. So that is well represented by this diagram over here. Okay, so like before we see like what is AutoML and like say what are all the parts that we are trying to automate currently, we will look into the overall AI lifecycle as such. So just to understand like say how AI or ML lifecycle looks like, say similar to product lifecycle. So this is a lifecycle of an AI or a ML product. So in general, like these are the different stakeholders which we are mentioned here, and these are the different processes that are involved. So generally it starts with like a business use case or a business need, and then like once that is identified by the business user, then like the data engineers and even data scientists work with the business user to understand the problem, and then do get the right data, like and then do exploration and augmentation and so on. Like once that is done, then like it goes to the model building process or the model development process, which is mostly done by data scientists or machine learning engineers. And then once that is done, it goes to the deployment and like testing in production. So we'll be deploying it in production. So the models that we built, and then like the managing or like say operationalizing the models, and like say the model management comes into the picture after that. And once that is done, say like now we have all the machine learning models or AI models in production. And so now like so this is technical, and like we need something like a API integration or a front end app, so which consumes this model and like say gives that back to an end user, so that like the business user or the end user can make use of that one, rather than just say like okay, so use a deep learning model or use the XGBoost model. So like say there will be an API integration part or the app development part, which primarily involves the application developers, and then the final application is used by the business users. So this says the overall AI life cycle, and say like going forward, like we'll see like how the AutoML part has evolved, like how it started and how it moved on to the other processes in this life cycle. So this is at a higher level. So this is the like extended version of the previous slide, so that we talked about. So here, as we could see, like even inside that, like say like for the first part, like inside the data preparation, so there will be like data exploration, preparation of the data munging, and so on. And even inside the machine learning part, which is done by data scientists, so there is a lot of things involved. Like the first thing, generally whenever we build a model, it starts with feature engineering, like either using the original features or new features we need to create out of the given features. And then like there are a lot of ML algorithms out there, like, and we need to choose the right algorithm for that particular problem. And also like even inside each of the algorithm, there will be like multiple hyperparameters, so we need to choose the right set of hyperparameters for that particular ML algorithm. So again, like I mean, instead of choosing single ML algorithms, we can also do, I mean, say use a combination of multiple algorithms, which we call as ensembling or stacking. So all these things will go into the model building part, which is mentioned over here. So we need to tune all these things and get the best possible model, or the set of models out there. Like once that is done, like we need to select the correct final model, and we also need to see like what is the explanation that we get out of the final model. And one other part which is important is also like say to create good reports like for this model building process, so that this can be shared with the management team or the business users, because and also to keep track of like say what we did. So if sometime like in the future, if we want to come back and see like what we actually did over there, so those things, and like once that is done, then we need to do the final model building, as in the pipeline generation, where we need to get the entire pipeline of feature engineering model, the final model, or and the ensembling or stacking, and then put that into the model ops, which is like where we would like deploy our models. So say once we deploy the model, then like whenever a new data comes in, so we use that to get predictions, and also we will use the explanation for to get new explanation for the new incoming data. So this is like a slightly extended version of the previous one. So now, like say, okay, so this is the life cycle. So like in general, is there any definition for AutoML? So that's a question like which many people have. So actually, like there's an organization called AutoML.org that has been like created by University of Freiburg and University of Hanover. So like this is the definition that is provided by them. So say generally, like when we say AutoML, which is automated machine learning, so it is something that provides methods or processes to make machine learning available for non-machine learning experts. So this also coincides with the talent thing that we talked about some time back. So like there's a shortage in skilled experts. So like so that like AutoML, the role of AutoML is to make the machine learning available for non-machine learning experts or business users, and also to improve the efficiency of machine learning, so that like the time to build some of these models reduced by a lot, and also to accelerate the research on machine learning. So these are the prime definition, or the prime things like what AutoML is trying to do. And in general, like in the current situation, like say where we are, so these are some of the focus areas like where AutoML is focusing on. So that involves like say pre-processing and cleaning the data, and then like feature engineering, and then model building, optimizing the hyperparameters, and once the final model is built, like say do some post-processing and analyzing the results obtained. So the current AutoML tools or the AutoML products generally focus on these areas. So like from talking about an AutoML landscape, so like say these are some of the products both in the open source as well as in the closed source domain that is available. Like say for example, say H2 AutoML, Teapot, AutoKeras, and AutoScaler are available in the open source domain. So probably they are not as sophisticated as the say driverless AI. But like to start with, we can use these AutoML products and play with it. So the other ones are some of the proprietary ones. So in general, like evolution, if we talk about evolution of AutoML, like say, so these are the focus areas, like how it has evolved over time. Say for example, from 5 years back, how it has evolved to present like conditions. So like yeah, so even before the first gen or the second gen, third gen, so we have put it as first, second, and third. So even before first gen, so how it all started, like if I remember correctly, it's more like gen 0, which is the hyperparameter tuning. So like if we have built any machine learning model, so we know very well that like one of the uh, repetitive things which we generally do over there is to like say for any machine learning algorithm is to optimize the hyperparameters. So there's a set of hyperparameters like that have been given for any machine learning algorithm, and we need to get the best set of hyperparameters for that particular objective function. Say for example, so to give an idea, like so if there is a random forest model that we have and we want to build, and then there will be a set of hyperparameters like this, like what is the number of trees and what's the criteria that we need to use and the maximum features, depth, and sample split, and so on. So we need to like find out the best possible parameters for each of these different things, so that like we get the best model for that particular data. So in general, like when it started, so it was more like a grid search, so where we give like different values for each of these parameters, and then like the whole thing will run for all these combinations, so we get the best possible combination for that one. So it's just like a grid search where we search for all possible combinations. So there is nothing like say intelligent in it, but it's kind of automated, because like say we can just run it and we can sleep and come back and see like the results. So like hyperparameter is tuning is the first, like say gen 0 or the first initial step for AutoML, I would say. So then like okay, so then it evolved. Like for example, say like if we run the previous one, so it will try all possible combinations. But as a human being, if we run an experiment and if we don't see any good results, like then we won't continue down that path. So we'll go to some other path where we might be able to get better results. For example, say for the previous one, if the number of estimators is this, like say if the score being if this score is like say something like an RMSE or a log loss, so we can see that after running for estimator 10, 20, 30, 40, and like say 450, 5, 600, 700, 800. So we see that there's a clear demarcation here. So only if we use a value less than 200, then the scores will be low. So there is no point in trying out all these higher values. So okay, so we can include these kind of information into the optimization part. So that's where like some of these different updation optimization or other optimization techniques came in, like where it keeps track of the past evaluation results to get the best set of hyperparameters in the future iterations. So here again, it's zero effort and no supervision, just like the previous one, and but it is much less time consuming than the grid search. And okay, so if you want to try this on your own, so there are some of the good Python libraries available, like HyperOpt, Spearmint, or Bayesian optimization. Like we can just add this use these libraries along with the parameters of different models and try to get the best parameters like in a shorter span of time. Okay, so then like once that is done, so like we could put in all these things together, like both the choosing the best possible algorithm and the best set of hyperparameters, so that we get an AutoML say package or an AutoML functionality. So that's where like the first gen begin. So there are a few good packages that are available to do this one. So one very well known and very I mean, extensively used function is the AutoML function in the open source H2O. Say like if you use the open source H2O package, so it's available both for Python and R. So there's a function called AutoML inside the package where we could call this H2O AutoML, and like we could say here it's a very simple function. We can just specify different parameters, like say I need to run 10 maximum models. Please run not more than 10 models, and then like run for maximum 100 seconds, and this is the random seed. So and then we just need to input the training input variables as well as the response variables, and then like it will automatically try out a lot of different things. So I mean, it will try out a lot of different models and optimize for the hyperparameters and try to get the best possible model as well as hyperparameters. So like in case if you want to explore more about this and want to understand more about generally the AutoML which is available in the open source package, so there is a Kaggle kernel that I've written some time back, getting started with H2O. So like it has example of this, how to use H2O AutoML. So like once that is run, so like the previous one, so this is how we'll get the result as. So this AutoML will automatically try out a lot of different models, like say GBM here, GLM here, deep learning models, random forest, and try to give the different scores for each of these, for what is the AUC, what is the log loss, what's the RMSE, and so on. So like not only that it builds say, single models, it also builds some of the ensemble or stacked ensemble models. Like for example, in this case, the stacked ensemble model that it built is better than any other model. So this AutoML like builds both individual algorithms as well as stacked algorithms and try to get the best parameters also as well. So this is H2 AutoML. And like say one another very common machine learning package that we use on a day-to-day basis is scikit-learn. And like if you want to do say like if you want to automate some of these model selection and hyperparam in the scikit-learn, then auto-sklearn is a good package that is available. So it's very simple. So like just like we just need to call auto-sklearn classification, and then like we can just call the auto-sklearn classifier over there and fit it over train and input and output variables, so that it will try out the multiple different algorithms, classification algorithms that is present in scikit-learn, and gives the results from that one. So this part of the code, this is a very simple code snippet that will help run an auto-sklearn on a given data set. And similarly, okay, so one another good thing is, one another good open source tool that is available for this model building and hyperparam tuning is tpot. So tpot is another thing. So the previous ones mostly use some kind of a expert method and Bayesian optimization to do this one. So while tpot makes use of genetic programming for the optimization part, it is again built on top of scikit-learn, so it works well with scikit-learn things. Again, so like say here we also need to specify, since it's a genetic programming, we need to specify the number of generations in this function call. So everything else is much more similar. So like we do a fit and then do a export, so that we also get a pipeline which we can use for further prediction or inference purpose. And so far, like we have seen things like that have been used with YAML models, like say, but in case if there is a deep learning model that we would like to try, AutoKeras is open source AutoML package that is available, which we could use for optimizing some of the deep learning models. Like this runs on top of Keras. Like I'm sure, like say, you people know well about Keras. So it also uses the efficient neural architecture search thing to get the best set of parameters. So here is a simple example on how to use this AutoKeras for image classification task. So if there's an image classification task, so similar to the previous ones, we just call the image classifier and then do a fit and final fit, and we can use that for evaluation. So again, yeah. So these are some of the first gen AutoML tools, I would say. So like which is geared more just towards the model building part. So if we could see, all these open source packages are geared for model building, which is primarily like selection of algorithms as well as the selection of best hyperparameters for those algorithms. So then, moving on to the next generation of AutoML, I would say. So like say where apart from just doing the model building, like these tools started also focusing towards feature, the things that are surrounding the model building part, which is a automatic EDA and some like feature engineering, and also like say once the model is built, like we also need to put that model into production. So pipeline building and document creation, and also like explainability. So that's where like the second gen AutoML happened. Like like as I was mentioning, so this part, the first gen was focusing more on this model building part, while the second gen is geared more towards feature engineering, where it does basic features, advanced features, feature selection, creation of new features, and so on. and also model deployment like pipeline generation, model documentation, model explainability, because it's not just running the models, but also feature engineering or deploying the models also takes a lot of time, and they come immediately before and after the model building part. So the second step or the second gen AutoML focused more towards this one. So yeah, so that I mean, so that's where like the one of our product driverless AI come into. So there are also other products as we saw like available. So this product is, but I don't see any product in the open source domain that's very efficient for second gen. So like for driverless AI, so this is a platform to do all these stuffs that is mentioned in the previous slide. So this is how the architecture of this driverless AI product that I was mentioning looks like. So if we get a data, so we can do some kind of a data recipe for doing any kind of pre-processing or text or cleaning the data, or we can also do some automatic visualization here, so that like we get some good visuals from on the data. And so and we also see that like most of the first gen ones are focusing just on regression classification, but say the second gen ones also focus on other use cases, like they for example driverless AI can do time series, so it can create features like that are more suited for time series models, and it can also solve NLP problems, like it can also do image like in the next release which is coming up next week, so it will be also be able to do image classification task as well. So and apart from this, like if there is something that we as an end user want to add, like which we know, so that can also be bring in, like that we can bring in through new recipes over here. So it does feature engineering, model tuning, I mean model building and ensembling as well, apart from say automatic visualization. And finally, like once all this is done, we get explainability, Autodoc, and deployment pipeline. So this is the architecture of driverless AI. Yeah. So like we could do all these things over here. So as we saw this one already, I'll move to next one. So yeah, so that is about second gen. So like now like what is the next thing? So what I mean like what will be the next thing for AutoML? So like what will people try to do? So now that like most of the feature engineering and say deployment part is also taken care of. So the next thing is more like building vertical solutions with these AutoML tools. So like so far it's been like a more of a horizontal play where these things can be used across multiple different platforms, and most of the features that these AutoML tools create is also like on a generic nature. But say if you want to build very specific vertical space solutions, so that might involve some additional say data transformation, feature transformation. So those vertical solutions, building vertical solutions using the AutoML tools is the next gen, is what I mean the next gen AutoML is focusing on. It also involves say automated data augmentation. So apart from using the data that has been given by the end user, so if there are other data sources that are available in the open source domain, so automatically augmenting that data to build better features and models is one thing, and also like say allowing the end user to bring in some of their own secret sauces into the platform to build their own, and also like so the first two generations are focused more towards data scientists. So like so the third gen is trying to be focused more towards the business end user, because like they I mean those people are not really very tech savvy. So so some of these things are also geared towards that one. So I mean, so I would say like that's the other thing we at H2O are trying to do through our new product called H2O Q. So it's not there yet in the open market for end users, but it will be there soon. So this is for all users, while the first two generation ones are more for data scientists. So yeah, so that's like how AutoML has been evolving over time, like right from the beginning. So I'll show a quick demo of say driverless AI, where we'll try to see like how AutoML works in action. So in action, say like how AutoML things work. Okay, so this is the uh, tool, the driverless AI tool, so that we use. So once we log into the tool, we'll go to the datasets page. Like here, the thing is, say we can upload any datasets. Like say we have connectors to multiple different things, like say S3 or Google BigQuery, so Hadoop and everything. So like we can upload our dataset where we want to do the model building. So for this demo purpose, I'll just take a NLP dataset, so which is a text dataset. So just to showcase that it's not just meant for numeric or categorical data. So some of these tools are also geared towards unstructured data, time series data, and so on. So this is a simple data set that has only two columns. So one is the text, the other one is the label, which is positive and negative. We can look at the details here. So like just to give an idea. So this is how the data looks like. So there's a text column and then there's a label column, so which will tell whether it's positive or negative. Okay, so and then we can also do some kind of visualization where we see like what are all the different plots. So like say in case if there's a numeric data, we can see if there is a outlier in the data or not. So such kind of visualizations can be done. And then we can also do a split where we can split the data into train, test, validation, and so on. So the main part is predict. So I'll move on to the predict part. So like if you just click on predict, so it will, I mean, the experiment will be started. So we can choose, like if there is some columns that we want to drop, we can drop those columns. If there is a validation set, test data set, we can provide them. So I mean, the main thing is to just select target column. So in this case, it's the label. So once I select the label, so it automatically finds out, okay, whether it's a classification problem. So if there are any GPUs, then like it will make use of the GPUs. And these are some experiment settings. So accuracy, time, and interpretability. So these two settings are more towards a, like, if I mean, we can adjust these settings so that it will try out more more algorithms, more feature engineering techniques, and depending on the accuracy that we need and the time we have at hand, we can adjust these two knobs. And this is about interpretability. So this is about explainability. So if we set the explainability to low, then it will try more complex algorithms, more black box models. But if it is high, then it will try only very simple models, like say GLM or decision trees and so on. We can also choose the scorer, like whether we need AUC or we need log loss and so on. And like say once all these things are set, so there will be an experiment summary we'll get here, where we'll get to know, okay, so it's going to try these models and the final pipeline will look like this, and these are the different feature engineering that it will try to do. So in general, so these are the features that it will try to create. So automatically it will figure out whether it's a numeric column or a textual feature, and then it will apply only those feature engineering for this one. So currently it will just try basic text features over here. So in case, like if you want to try some of the expert say deep learning models or the deep learning features for NLP, so if you go into the expert settings here, so that's the NLP tab. So like we also have like CNN based features, BiGRE based RNN features, and also like character level CNN features. And in the next version, which is 1.9, we are also enabling some of these latest state of the art NLP models. So like if you want to know more about this NLP, so we also have a presentation later in the night today. So as in the daytime viewers, so please feel free to jump into that one and like say know more about the BERT models. So like as you could see here, sorry. So these are the different BERT variants that we are integrating into driverless AI: BERT, Digital BERT, XLNet, Robota, Albert, XLM Robota, and so on. So we could also try these models. So now I've selected most of these deep learning models as well. So if we go back, so this is now adjusting. So we could now see that like it will also try BERT models and digital BERT models, and it will also try feature engineering based on CNN, character CNN, and text by GRO. So essentially, like if we launch this experiment now, so it will try like basic DFIDF based features. It will try some of these CNN deep learning, LSTM models, and it will also try out the BERT, digital BERT model. and whichever models and feature engineering are suitable for this particular data, then it will run and give the best results using all the, I mean, best results out of all these different models. So yeah, sorry. So this will take some time to run because I mean it will, and since it is also text and we have enabled some of these heavyweight deep learning models, so it will run and we'll get the results over here. So say let me quickly take up one of the completed experiments and see like how it will look like once it is over. So we'll take a simple model. So once it is complete, so like we'll get something like this. So here, like we get an option for deployment, we get an option for interpretation, diagnose the model, and we'll also get the pipelines, both Python as well as the Java, I mean Mojo pipeline, which we can download and use for any of our inference purpose. And we can get to see how the models have varied in each of these iterations. So these are the different iterations that the tool has tried, and these are the variable importance in each of these iterations. And this is the summary of the overall model building process. And we can also see there's an auto report part here where we can download this auto report on our own. And it will give us information about all these different things, the type of validation it did, the type of models it tried, and the type of and the values of hyperparameters it used, and so on. So yeah, so that's mostly like how the AutoML tool works currently. As in, so going back to the presentation, okay. So that's cool. So that's about AutoML. So and one thing which I also wanted to mention as in this forum is like say H2O also has started a learning center training H2O.ai. So if you'd like to get expertise in some of the H2O tools and things. So then like training.h2o.ai is a good place like where we could go and do some of these self-paced tutorials and learn about H2O. And like we also get some of these badges like if we complete the courses over there. And there's also an H2O aquarium where we could try out some of these tools as well. And okay, so if you want to try some of, I mean, this Traveler's AI tool on the own, then we could, there's a 21-day free trial license. We can get that from the H2O website. We can go there and get that and try it on our own in our own mission as well. So that's mostly about like the AutoML and what is AutoML and generally how it has been evolving over time and where we are currently. Yeah, thank you. So yeah, let's open up for some questions, I guess.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, SRK, sir. How can AutoML help in improving security intrusion detection? Or is that just a use case question?
Yeah, that's a use case question, I would say. So yeah, so similar to any other use case. So like we could if you could able to frame that as a say the machine learning problem, then like we should be able to do that using some of these AutoML tools. I think like yeah, so these tools are very common for different industries, I would say, and different use cases. So that's where like the third gen AutoML that we were talking about will come into picture. So this third gen AutoML tools will help like build specific vertical based solutions. So that will be catering more towards this specific use case as well.
Thank you. How does AutoML integrate with big data frameworks like Hadoop and Spark?
That's a good question. So okay, so like so this, for example, say if we want to try the first gen AutoML like the open source H2 AutoML, then like we have the sparkling water. I think probably I skipped through that fast. So like we have something like a sparkling water, which where like we can use H2O on top of Spark. So H2O has the AutoML function. So we can obviously use the AutoML function on top of Spark. So that's one option. So if you want to use the open source one. For H2O driverless AI, so the driverless AI also have connectors to say Hadoop and Spark, like where we can use that to build the models. Like we can connect and get the data from Hadoop and Spark and build the models. And also like for in the next release, we are planning a multi-node the driverless AI as well, so that we can use that multi-node version to build models on multiple nodes. Yeah. So that's another option. Thank you.
Thank you. There's questions on recording, and then there's questions on documentation. We will share the recording and the slides from today shortly after this presentation is over. SRK sir, the next set of questions, and there's a few, ask if AutoML will help or replace people, or does it how does it compare to keeping an in-house team or of data scientists to do custom modeling, or moving entirely to AutoML solutions? I'd let you explain that to our attendees today.
Okay. So yeah, that's a very common question, I'd say, like that generally pops up whenever we talk about AutoML, like whether it will replace people. So like to me, like it won't replace people. So like, but it will help people like build some of these things in a faster manner. So that's where like we see AutoML. So like it will aid people to say if as a say data scientist or an MLP person, like say most of the times, like I need to change each and every one of these hyperparameters and look at like say what is that result and then try a new one. And so this is a repetitive process, and like say and our skills are not best used for doing this. So such kind of say some of these repetitive things are will be like easily done by these AutoML tools. So, but say some of these very skill things and like very nuanced things, and I'm sure like say the current gen of AutoML is also a very generic one. So like some of these domain specific things and domain specific recipes and it's not available in the AutoML tools. So I would say like the AutoML tools are best suited to aid uh, data scientists and people in building better solutions efficiently. Yeah, so that's the uh, case now. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Next question is regarding the list of upcoming webinars, and like the one you mentioned. So to our audience, if you go to our website h2o.ai and click on the first list of headers on the top right, there's one option called webinars and events, and you'll find all the list of upcoming events there. And next question is for you, sir.
Just to add to that one. So yeah, we also have a lot of meetup groups. So like mostly for each and every city, right? So for Chennai we have one, for Mumbai we have one, for Bangalore we have one. So if you join that meetup group, so you will also get emails like to your mailbox, from which you could also get to know about the webinars. So yeah, just to add, sir.
Yes, absolutely. And we used to love doing the physical events. As soon as we get a chance, we'd love to go back and meet our community in person. Next question is regarding the size of data sets that Driverless AI can handle. The question is if it can handle TBs and PBs of data.
Okay, so currently it's morely, it's limited mostly by the size of the mission. So like it can handle data. The handling of the data depends on the RAM of the machine, because these algorithms are are in memory, as in like say they take the data inside the memory and then the algorithms are run on top of that. So it is limited by the memory of the machine, I would say. I think like with multi-node we'll be able to scale. Handle like even bigger data sets. So yeah. So that's the idea. So it's more limited by the size of the mission. So
thank you. Are tutorials free of cost? Yes, they are entirely free of cost. Please go to training.h2o.ai and get started. Can you talk more about how AutoML does hyperparameter optimization?
okay, great. So yeah, so I briefly touched upon that one. So in one of these slides, let me go back. So most of the say AutoML tools or the AutoML packages use some of these optimization techniques to tune the hyperparameters. So like say if you're interested in knowing more about this, like say if we can look at some of these tools like Bayesian optimization experiment or HyperOpt. So this will give an idea of like say if you look at in each of these iterations how it is selecting the best parameters, and if you can also look at the the math behind that one, so we'll get to know how this optimizes and gets the best parameters. So just to give a simple idea, it's more like a surrogate model. So like say it will try. So for example, if there are two parameters that we want to optimize, x1 and x2, and the optimization is say something like log loss. So using one, I mean, a value for x1 and x2, we'll see like what's the log loss we are getting. And similarly, x1 and x2, a different value, and see the second different log loss. So now we have 2 or 3 rows. So we can, I mean, just as an extension of machine learning, we can use these 3 rows to build a model, and then like use that model to predict the next best set of parameters. So it's very similar. So we use some kind of an optimization or a, and at times we use genetic algorithms as well. So to get the best set of parameters. So I mean, if you want more details, so some of these libraries will give much more idea of how exactly it works.
Thank you. How exactly do you visualize and or explain object detection and classification use cases?
Okay, so yeah, so like okay, so I'm not an expert in image, to be very honest. So yeah, I'll say that upfront just to okay. So but I've seen like at least in let's say, so when Eugene Babakin is working, so Eugene Babakin is like our resident expert in image related task, and I think like there might be a webinar, 1 or 2 webinar in image classification using driverless AI in already there in our upcoming one as well. So like where I've seen like some of these techniques like class activation maps, where like depending on which class gets activated in the model, so uh, look at the gradients of the deep learning model to get the like which parts are the models looking into, and get the segment where it is looking into when that class gets activated. So that's one way like uh, people do like understand how the models are working. But that being said, like please listen to some of the webinars by Eugene to understand more about that one. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And we'll try to get the Eugene for one of our next virtual meetups.
Sure. Yeah, that will be awesome.
Is all the pipeline in AutoML pipelines automated? For instance, in data prep pipeline, how this can be automated without domain knowledge?
Okay, so like the pipeline in the sense like say whatever that has been done inside the tool is automated. It's not just the say I mean models and the ensemble of models that goes into the pipeline. Say for example, say whatever the feature engineering. So in case of text, if you create a TF-IDF feature or a CNN feature, then like that also goes into the pipeline. So when we say pipeline, so the pipeline involves both the feature engineering and the uh, like model building as well. So okay, so that's a good question. That like say how do we automate some of these like very specific vertical related things? So that's something. I mean, so AutoML tools can't automatically like do that. So it needs to be feeding either through custom recipes, and like say in version 1.9 we also have option like say if the end user add some of these extra domain specific models or domain specific feature engineering, so that will also be a Python code. So that code will also get integrated into the pipeline, so that the final pipeline that we get out of the tool also includes this custom recipe code as well in addition engineering that is done inside the tool as well as the model building. Thank you.
Thank
Hope
you.
that answers.
Can optimization routines like mixed integer and linear programming be done using H2O?
Not really. So these, I mean, so we don't expose like directly these optimization routines outside. So these are the internal optimization that we use for optimizing the hyperparameters and the feature evolution. So probably we would create a app using the queue, I mean the new tool that we are working on. So for some of these optimization, like linear programming and so on. So, but in the current tools, like we can't really do that one. Thanks.
Thank you. Can you talk a little bit more about time series use cases that can be solved using AutoML?
That's a great question. So yeah, I mean, so time series, like say when we say time series, we could do any kind of forecasting, or like say it could be direct forecasting, or it could be like say time as one component in the time series analysis. So both of them can be handled well by driverless AI. So driverless AI has recipes for some of these time series models like ARIMA and DWMA and so on. And apart from that, it also creates a lot of features that are geared towards time series. Like say, if there is a date, it will automatically extract things like say day of the week or day of the month or week of the year, and also things like lag features. So like if we are trying to predict the sales, like say what was the sales last month the same day or the last year same day, so such kind of lag features also like driverless AI will be able to extract automatically and then do a time series forecasting or a time series prediction. And like it can also I mean it also has interpretation for time series, so we can also try to understand like why that particular forecast we are getting. And we can also have some specific things like whether there should be a gap between the prediction, because like say there is a lag for a data update. If there is a lag, then we can also include that one. So there are a lot of nuances that we have also integrated inside that time series of driverless AI. So yeah, so and that being said, like Marius and Saran are two people who are like working on this one day in and day out. And I'm sure like there is a lot of videos available that's been done by Marius. So looking at a specific time series video will be like much more helpful to understand if there is a specific time series use case.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
And all those videos are available on our YouTube channel for our attendees to look at. Next question, how easy is it to keep a check on inference time and use the AutoML techniques accordingly for models to be deployed on edge devices?
Mhm.
Do you want to
Okay,
take that?
so yeah, I mean, okay, so I don't have an answer for that one, but say like if time is a problem, then like I mean, so generally people don't go with some of these complicated models. So at least from an NLP standpoint, say like if you build something like a BERT model, like then it's definitely going to take a lot of inference time and with a very high-end hardware. So like using something like say TF-IDF and creating a mojo out of it is a very simple thing, so that like generally the time taken to score such kind of features as well as the model is very simple. So like try out different things, like say try building different models with different features, and essentially depending on the time cutoff that we have as well as the size of the model cutoff we have, we can choose the feature engineering as well as the model. So yeah, I mean it's not just for edge devices, for any of the inference purpose, depending on the use case that we have, we can choose the feature engineering as well as the model. Yeah, thanks.
Can AutoML be used effectively for unsupervised data?
Sorry, can you please repeat that one?
Absolutely. Can AutoML be used effectively for unsupervised data?
That's a good question. So, okay, so unsupervised itself like is generally, I mean, so when we do unsupervised, mostly it involves some kind of a human effort, right? So we need to identify like what I mean, we need to use some kind of a human judgment to see, okay, so these clusters look good, and like say or these kind of segmentation looks good. So at least the current ML tool, I mean auto ML tools are not very well like geared towards unsupervised. Say like we can use these tools to say some, I mean say automate some of these things, like so for example say in the queue, like we are building an app for unsupervised clustering where it will automatically try different clustering, like say k-means, db-scan, and other things, and gives an end result. But then like we as humans need to take a judgment to use which one from that one. So the tool itself can't automatically pick up the best algorithm, because like say in supervised we'll get an objective function to optimize for, so that is not really there for an unsupervised one. So we'll try out some of these things, can try out all these different options and give it back to you, so that the humans can then take a judgment on which one to use.
Great,
Thanks.
thank you. Do you think AutoML will be able to create completely new neural architectures, or is it just an optimization, choose one of the best type layer thing?
I mean, neural architecture in the sense, okay, so I don't exactly, I mean, no, in the sense like, yeah, say if we say neural architecture in the sense like, say, if it can automatically create something like a transformer architecture on its own, so probably like we are not there yet. But say if our new architecture is adding a new layer, then yeah, it will say instead of 2 layers, it can try 3 layers or 4 layers, and then try to see if it helps. Yeah. Thanks.
Sure, thank you. How does automatic explainability of CNNs happen in AutoML? Do you want to take that question?
Okay, so currently, like for okay, so say the image-based CNNs, we are kind of using I mean class activation maps kind of thing to do the explainability part for image. For NLP, so we are yet to do any kind of ML use for CNN right now. For image, yeah, so we are using class activation maps.
Thank you. Next question is, where is driverless AI installed and executed? Is it in a customer's cloud account? So it can be on-prem or on cloud, depending on what infrastructure you have and what you prefer. Do you have anything to add to that, SRK sir?
No, sir. So yeah, as you rightly pointed out, it's agnostic. So like say, I mean, we can download it and use it on our local machine, or if we want to use it on any specific cloud provider, so we can use for all specific. I mean, all cloud providers. It's not like restricted to any specific cloud providers, or it's not just restricted to cloud as well. So yeah.
Thank you. Let's take two more short questions. Does driverless AI, or in general any AutoML, have REST API integrated?
Yes. So I think like for driverless AI, we can deploy that as a REST API. So if we go to the deployment section, so like at least in the documentation, if you go to the driverless AI documentation, so we'll have a section where we can see like how we can deploy that as an API. So I think yeah, that's available.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Next question, and a few of them on the same lines. How can I get started with AutoML and learning about it, and using it in my organization to accelerate my team's progress?
Okay, so yeah, that's a great question, and yeah, so as we were discussing, so like at least to start with, so like if we try to explore some of these open source tools, so I mean we could try out the H2O AutoML, like so that will help like try to get all these modeling algorithms and hyperparameters on its own. So or it could be AutoScaler or Teapot. So these are available in the open source, so we can just do a pip install any of these packages, and then like we can try them for our own use cases. So that is one thing. Or if we want to try the driverless AI just to see, okay, so after trying, say probably trying all these open source, if we want to see like what feature engineering, what additional advantages that we get by using any of these tool like driverless AI. So I mean, as I specified already, so we have a 21-day free trial license. So please feel free to download the trial license and use that use case for I mean, try that use case on the driverless AI mission. So that's another thing. So in case if there is, I mean, if you are stuck or if you want to learn it through a course-based manner, so then like we can use train.h2.ai to understand some of these AutoML tools, and like then use that. I mean, if you want to learn things through a proper course, yeah, then this is a way. Thanks.
Great. Thank you so
I
much,
mean,
SRK sir, for taking the time and Sorry, go ahead.
I mean, do you want to add anything to this one? I mean,
No, I think you covered it all. I was going to say, go to our website and click on the free trial button, but you had the link on the screen right there, so that helps. And like there's a learning center, which I think pretty much sums up the beginning avenues that people can take. On that note, we are at the top of the hour, and I'd like to thank you, Sarkis sir, for taking the time and doing such a wonderful presentation, explaining it so beautifully. I'd also like to say thank you to everyone who joined us today. The presentation slides and the recording, like mentioned earlier, will be sent out shortly in an email after this. Have a great rest of your day, everybody. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks everyone. Yeah, it's a pleasure, and it's a great webinar and a lot of good questions as well. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.